Y'all know what it is.
Hey guys, before I get into today's show, I'd like to take a quick minute to encourage each of you to take a minute, rate, and share the show on your favorite podcasting platform. Also, subscribe and click the little bell on YouTube to support the show and help bump us up in the algorithm. What's that you say? You didn't realize that the show was on YouTube? That's right, it is and it has been for some time. So visit our channel each week to catch the latest episode of Eggs in all its glory, and find some exciting new content in the coming weeks and months. We're thrilled to be continually leveling up the show and giving you more of what you're looking for, so be on the lookout and get involved at eggscast.com and in the comments on YouTube. Big stuff ahead, but now, on with the show. Welcome to a star-studded episode of Eggs Classics. Today's guest is comedian and business coach and one half of the comedy duo Marcus and Guy, Marcus. From the early days of our Salt Lake City-based studio, way back in November of 2018, local celebrity and runner-up of the TV show Last Comic Standing, Marcus, joined the show for an exciting conversation about his past, present, and future. He talks about touring nationally with some of the biggest names in the comedy game, in addition to adapting his communication expertise gained in the comedy clubs into a coaching career where he helps high-powered leaders communicate more effectively using humor. It was a great chat that covered a lot of ground, so stick with it to the end. We learned a lot and had a great time laughing and learning. All the way back from episode number 78, which aired originally on November 8th, 2018, please join me in welcoming to the show comedian and business coach, Marcus.
Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of Eggs. Today's guest is a comedian. You're going to have to help me fill in the blanks. I don't want to say things that aren't true, but he's appeared on Last Comic Standing. Yeah. He's open for a number of touring national acts and things. I actually saw him open for a couple big nationals. And he's an amazing comic based out of Salt Lake area. Mm-hmm. And a lot of fun. So let me introduce you to Marcus. Marcus is our guest.
Hi, everyone.
And we're just going to kind of kick this thing off. So we had initially thought we'd be talking about a lot of comedy related stuff. However, we found out some new things about you when you walked in about business coaching and things like that. So we have a lot of ground to cover.
It's kind of cool to hear that, because our podcast kind of jumps between bands and CEOs and all sorts of different creative types.
Right.
And comedy, and then the fact that you're doing business coaching, it'll actually work with our demographic really well.
Well, and it goes hand in hand so well. I mean, it's amazing how every skill that I've ever learned on a stage can be, applicable to the boardroom or any kind of sales pitch or presentation. It's fascinating. So it's a world that I've been getting into lately over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's really cool. Well, and I mean, to your point, I mean, it is a perfect metaphor for business. Like, I mean, just the struggles of being I guess you're playing open mic nights or whatever is your equivalent of trying to get your start out of your mom's garage or whatever. And it's all those steps.
And it's a lot of, it's like comics, we fail publicly constantly, right? Like our practice is getting up in front of a crowd and going, hope this is funny, right? And trying to remove like the ego from the process, if we're just getting right into this. But the whole idea that like I use the open mic metaphor for a lot of the people that I work with. It's like I get to go to open mic, right? And somebody gives me some time, that certain little segment of time, 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever I know as a headlining comic who's built an act, and my act is an hour and a half, however long people need me to fill. I know that this 3 minutes is in service of a greater narrative, right? But it's my choice in the process of what I work on. Because if I go to an open mic as the guy who gets paid to do this, as a guy who makes a living being a comic, and my new jokes aren't funny, and I go up there for 3 minutes and it's just silence, then does my ego kick in and go, oh man, the guy who's doing this for the second time did better than me. I better shoot. What does that say about me? Or does it just say, look, I had to get out there. I had to try these new things. And then recognizing when something's not ready, or recognizing, removing yourself from the process and going, okay, the audience didn't laugh, but why? It's not on them. It's not me saying like, oh, they were a bad audience. No. Okay. Why didn't I connect with them?
It's honing in on your product, what you're putting out there.
Right. And your ability to read instantly what your audience is. Like most companies and stuff, people that I work with in the coaching world, like they don't have the ability to sit there and roll something out and hear the instant reactions. Or every time somebody opens a Pepsi and goes, right? They don't hear that. So they have to imagine that through the way that they approach their brand and the way that they approach their marketing and their advertising or whatever it is, right? So what do? A lot of them, in fact, most of the great most of the great speakers, most of the great TED Talks, most of the great memorable things that we connect with the nostalgia of growing up were because there was moments of humor. There were silly little things, right? We can still remember how having to avoid the Noid or the silly, Energizer Bunny. It's stupid, it's silly, but why do we connect with it? Because laughter is an emotional reaction, right? That's the job of a comic, is to stand on a stage in front of a group of people they can't see. A group of people that are not all the same demographic. There's young kids, there's old couples, there's married people, there's single people, people from every race, creed, color, religion, sexual orientation, and make all of them have an emotional reaction to the same thing on command.
Yeah.
That's my job.
That's got to be, I mean, like, I thought my job was tough being a DJ and trying to make everyone happy, like.
There's a lot of parallels,
But you do, right?
Yeah.
What you do is, as standing up there, if you played your set despite your audience,
it doesn't work.
It doesn't
work.
work.
You have to base it off of the demographic that's in front of you.
And the emotion and the energy that they're giving back to you, right?
Yeah. Oh, I feed off of it. It's
absolutely, you do.
Yeah,
absolutely. And just the same as a comic, right? Like, I have to listen to them. If they're laughing long, let them laugh. If they're having fun with this, great. Let's stay here for a second. Let's listen to them, right? We kind of have to remove ourselves. And I think that's one of the coolest things that I've been able to kind of learn with working with these people that I've been working with, is that, you come to this realization that, we are all multifaceted. So it's not about like me saying, I know what my act is. I know what kind of comic I am. I know what I'm bringing to the stage and you guys are getting better. No, it's going, look, I'm confident in my skill set. I am over prepared. If they're asking me to do an hour, I've got 2 in my head. If they're asking me to fill, whatever it is, I've got this. I can do this. I'm aware that this is something that I'm very good at. It's not ego to say that you're good at your skill set.
Mm-hmm.
It's ego to say you're the best, or it's ego to say, nobody's better than that. That's stupid. But to say, no, you put me on a stage with a mic in my hand, I'm going to do a good job.
Yeah.
Like, that's me knowing my skill set.
Well, that just comes with time served.
Well, yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, lots to unpack there. So one of the things that I'm really grateful to have discovered is that I'm not the only person that drinks a soda and goes this whole time.
Every time.
Yeah, I kind of keep it down low. But
I turn to the camera and do it. There's not even one there. I'll make sure the name's out and everything. I'm just.
So, and then the other thing that you just sort of started to get into is this idea of sort of an imposter syndrome, where people have a really hard time just accepting the fact that maybe I'm good at something, or I should be allowed to be okay with that, and they're trying too hard to, I don't know, justify themselves or not give themselves credit when they should be giving themselves a little bit of credit.
Right.
Well, so as a comic, I mean, come on, how do you do that? I mean, you guys are all supposed to be self-loathing. You're not supposed to be happy, generally speaking. I don't think.
Right.
So how do you ever get to that point? Is that some enlightenment that you've come across?
I think it's a myth, man. I think that the best comics in the world should be the ones that feel the most. I mean, honestly, I can personally say that, like, if you ever been to an open mic and you've got 30 dudes up there, most of which are trying this for the first time, it's usually really obvious who's there for the first time, because
they usually start with, "This is my first time,"
and then they follow that up with the worst, dirtiest things that you could hear. It's the same gross jokes, it's sex stuff, it's this stuff, it's whatever. Why? It's because they think, what's funny? I'm going to talk about that, right? So I'm going to say a funny word. I'm going to do something that is inherently silly. And so that's like one of the things, like I could say booger to a 3-year-old kid.
He's going to laugh. I'm going to laugh.
I'm holding back the laugh. I kind of want to laugh.
But it doesn't make me a comic, right? Yeah. That's a reaction. The best comics, the best comedy, and you guys can probably think about this, right? The things that you can think back on from your childhood, the first time you remember something that made you laugh. Eddie Murphy Delirious for me.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw Eddie Murphy Delirious. I want some ice cream. I want some ice cream. And the googly, all that. Like, I can remember all of that. And it does. It makes you laugh. Why is it I haven't, you can go 20 years without watching that, but you can access that emotion. It's because you connected to it on a level that was personal. So for me, instead of thinking, what's funny, and talking about that, because ultimately, right, this is another great thing that I think a lot of business leaders and people in just about any industry don't think about, is you have to think and act like a headliner. So even when I only had 5 minutes, I had to, like I said, know that 5 minutes is ultimately going to be part of an hour. So I have to think like a headliner at all times and not limit myself to only focusing on 5 minutes and understanding what that 5 minutes means and where it fits. And then that ultimately gives you the ability to go, okay, if I'm going to be on stage for longer, then instead of just talking about BS, why don't I find the stuff I want to talk about and then find the funny in that? So it doesn't matter. And now that's what I've started doing is like people will come to me and go, hey, I have to go up on stage and talk for an hour to insurance companies about me being the doctor for them to send claims to for shoulder and elbow surgeries. That's my specific thing. I got to fill an hour.
Okay, I got 5 minutes.
Right. How do I fill an hour? And then how do I have that emotional check-in, which laughter is that great emotional check-in where you let, your audience lets you know they're listening and that they're attached to your message. So being able to take the humor and find the humor in all of these different things is fascinating. And I don't think that it ever has to be like this self-loathing process. I think a lot of these young comics do that because I guess in order to start, you kind of have to be, you either have to have a very understanding wife or you have to, because I mean, when I started, I was in a comedy club 6 days a week.
Right.
I was at Wise Guys. It was open every day but one when I started. And it doesn't matter if I was on the show, if I was part of the show, I was in the back, I was watching every comic, I was there in case somebody said, in fact, one of the first times I hosted at Wise Guys, out at the old West Valley Wise Guys, by where the Maverick Center, almost the East Center. I'm showing my age.
That's all right. I think we're pretty close in age, so I remember all that stuff.
But we were out there, and there was like 15 comics standing in the back. It was for Harlan Williams. It was a Harlan Williams show, and I was just a young new comic. And Keith Stubbs, the owner of Wise Guys and probably my greatest mentor, he just walked past, like the music to come on, like that was starting the show back in the day. It was the Scat Man song. That man was,
is that the right way?
Yeah, and then it would come on, and you knew the show was going to start. Yeah, that was it. And I still can't hear that without getting excited because I knew the show was starting. And he walks past this group of comics, like 15 of us, just standing in the back, and he just went, "Marcus, go host."
What?
And I just went, "Oh, okay." And he went back to the back and said, "Ladies and gentlemen," and I'm taking off my jacket, standing in the back going, "Okay, I need to fill 10 minutes. Okay, that joke and that joke. And okay." And I just went up there going, I know that I have the capability to do at least what he's asking me to do. And I didn't think twice about it. And I just went up there and I did it. And it was funny. I ran into Harlan years later and I had changed my look. I'd cut my hair because I had long hair back in the day. I had a beard back in the day, all this stuff. And he looked at me and went, "Hey, you're the guy. And you did that joke. And I remember that joke. And it led with the thing." And I went, like, that's amazing, right? Like there was this incredible, like, you had to be ready. You have to live, like they say, as if, and kind of plan your life that way. And it's awesome. Like every time I talk about comedy, I smile.
So let's go back to, we kind of like, our show is called Eggs, and what we do is we go over someone's career from like start to current and kind of get the eggs of their career and kind of
sounds good.
Go that way. When did you get into it? Like what time frame was this? Like
well, I mean, I've always been a performer. Like I've done impressions since I was 8. I used to do every cartoon character, every Muppet. I would, if I was role playing or we were doing like some sort of like, we're playing Indiana Jones, you're playing Star Wars. Like I would try to do the voices and try to do the lines. And I would entertain my friends. When I got jobs, people were always like, "Hey, do the next, like do Walken, be Christopher Walken for the next customer." And they would push me to do these things. Right. So, and then I was in a band for a while. So I knew, actually prior to that, hold on, let me go back. So I'd always done that. In 2000, I went to a school for professional wrestling.
What?
Yeah. You're gonna have to talk slower.
I moved to San Antonio, Texas, and I got trained by a guy named Shawn Michaels, the Heart Rate Kid. And when he was retired, I went to his school, and I was one of only 2 people in my class that graduated. I'm very proud to say that. And I did professional wrestling for a while. Got really hurt, but I always liked the performance aspect of anything that I did. Trying to create something, a persona or a something
alter
memorable.
Ego,
right? Yeah. And that was what was great with wrestling. And then a couple years later, I got in a band, and it was really fun to kind of create a mystique and a sound, and I worked with a band. But as bands are, a lot of people you all kind of want to contribute. Not everybody thinks the same way. So eventually that broke up, and in doing the band, I'd met people in radio. And so when the band broke up, And being a front man, I was always doing little bits in between songs, right? Like I would, again, do voices or whatever. That got me into radio, hanging out, doing an internship with Mick and Alan at K-Bear,
Nice.
and just hanging out for free for about a year and a half, just doing bits, I'll do George Bush, so they would be like, he was in office at the time, so it was real funny. Kind of call in and do him as a character. And I do Family Guy, do these calls in and, do all these different characters. And it was a lot of fun. And so sometimes there was a time when we were up at Sundance and I did an entire interview with Matthew McConaughey. and I actually said I was hoping to catch a Jazz game while I was in town. And the Jazz called the station. We're like, we have 2 seats waiting for him. He wants to come down. I was like, they were like, don't tell him. I was like, all right, man, we'll just keep that. We'll just keep that nice and sense. But I would do that around and eventually I started meeting comics that would come into the station every week to promote their shows, and I would do bits with them or whatever, just be present. And finally, a local guy, John Moyer. I don't know if you know John. He was the writer and director of Mobsters and Mormons, and he's a real good guy, genuine dude. And he said, "You need to come in and meet Keith. Come on, just come down this weekend. I'm headlining you. Come down and you meet him." And so he brought me in. He took me into Keith's office, and Keith went, "Oh yeah, you're the radio guy that does the voices. Do something." And I just went, okay. And I did some stuff. And he goes, "That's funny. Come back Sunday. I'll give you 2 minutes." And I said, cool. And I came back Sunday and he put me up in front of a road dog. That's what we call people who were touring a lot back then, would just work the road. This guy named Nick Tyson, funny dude. He put me up for 2 minutes and I told jokes that I had written and people laughed. And I went,
oh, this is cool.
It was that they talk about that moment. Right. And I went, ooh. What's this?
The goosebumps.
Yeah, exactly. I knew that I had to do that again. And I got off stage and Keith said, "You know what? That was really good. If you come back Thursday, tell you what, I'll give you 3 more minutes." So I came back Thursday, and then he offered me Friday and Saturday. And then I was there as often as I could. And not only would they give me time, but they pushed me. Like I remember the assistant manager, John, back in the day, he'd go, "You know what? You can come back and do a set tomorrow, but it better be 5 new minutes." And
so you had to go home and work and think about it,
or think about, not rest on your laurels, not just go, "Ooh, I know that joke works. Tell it every time." It pushed me, and eventually within 4 months of the first time I stepped on a stage at Wise Guys, a comedy club stage, and granted, I had done other things in the performance world and been a frontman in a band, so I understood the energy and controlling a crowd. But within 4 months of working my tail off, I headlined my very first night. He gave me a Sunday and I sold that room out just by working and handing out flyers after every show that I opened on. And then forever after that, I was on every show he'd let me. To this day, even though I tour and headline, I still open for people that I want to work with. I still call them up and go, "Hey, I just did a weekend with Jeremy Piven and that was awesome."
Nice.
Yeah.
I just got to hang out and work with Jeremy and talk with him. My buddy Brian Posehn's coming in right after Thanksgiving, and me and him always work together. So we're just doing the show together. I love that. There is no, "Oh, I'm a headliner now, so I'm there." No. I want to get up no matter where I'm at in the show. And if I'm going up before a dude, then my job is to make sure he has the best show he can. Right. If I'm the headliner, then I'm the same other way.
Same thing in the DJ world.
Right.
You get the guys that come in and they're playing from 10 o'clock and they're playing peak hour sets. And that's not what you're doing. You're essentially there to sell liquor and get people ready for the prime time.
Exactly.
And they don't get that. They think, "Oh my God, I'm here. I'm playing in this big club." And
I better pull out all the stops. Right?
Yeah. And it ruins it. It ruins the night for everyone.
Yep.
The venue, the DJ that's opening after you, the guy that's actually getting paid to headline and can do it better than you.
So
you know what I mean?
You know what? And that's such a relatable metaphor. Because I've been on shows or been to shows where I've seen an opener just, dude, we gave you 10 minutes, you did 20. And your last 10, you did.
And the red light was on for the last 8 minutes.
And it wasn't good. Right. It wasn't like you were killing and we were like, "Okay, he's killing, let him keep going 20. It's like a lot of times it's that idea of like, okay, how much of the time that you're spending on stage or wherever you are is for you and how much is for the audience?
Yeah.
Because I've seen people who like the best of them, they know when that laugh hits, that's it. Right. It's like a movie when you're watching it and you go, "Oh, that'd be a great end. Oh, there's more.
Let's keep going." Yeah.
Oh, Frodo's gonna wake up and there's 7 minutes of slow motion Hobbit hugging. Okay. Shit. When do I go? Can I say that, by the way?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to.
No, you're great.
But yeah, that's I don't know. It's it's fascinating how all of this kind of just, you know, it led me to well, see, that's the let me go back. So I started doing Wise Guys, and I stayed in that club, and I did as much stuff as I could for years. Keith had a comedy competition back in the day called the Rocky Mountain Laugh Off, which was a local thing, but they brought in comics from Denver, Washington, Oregon, Idaho. People would come down and compete in this competition because there were some big names that would compete in it every year. And the one year that I won it, 2007, is when, God, it was me. It was Jeff Dye, who ultimately was on Last Comic with me. It was Adam Ray, who is literally blowing up Hollywood right now. Adam Ray is amazing. It was like, I'm looking, I think Ryan Hamilton was in that year. Like it was insane. Like it was just right now heavy hitters, like, but back in the day we were all these kids and we did this, and I ended up winning, and everybody thought that Jeff was going to win, even the people from Seattle. So when he went back there and didn't, they were like, well, who won? And he said, this Marcus dude. And Jeff was so cool that he like introduced me to the clubs up there. So that got me got me involved in the Seattle comedy competition, which was a month-long competition that didn't pay anything unless you won. So I had to go up. I got to meet some really great comics who let me live on their couches. My friend Lucas Seeley, who is an unbelievable comic and unbelievable cook. He actually has these web videos that he'll post of him cooking. He's an incredible mind as well. And so we went up and he let me sleep on his couch. And this was the coolest competition ever, because every night you were in a different city and a different venue. So one night you're at the Comedy Underground in Seattle, and then the next night you're driving to, I don't know, Everett, Washington. And
well, there's like so many. I'm from Seattle.
Oh,
yeah. So like, it's funny parallel there. You got Seattle, you got Bellevue, you got Everett, you got Tacoma.
Well, we went to Walla Walla. We went to everywhere. We went to Laughs Across the Bridge. So one night we're in like a classy theater. The next night we're in a bowling alley.
Yeah, I heard there's a rad pizza spot in Kirkland.
Yeah, we went to Kirkland. We went to Bellingham. We went to everywhere. And so like again, one night we're in a bowling alley. One night we're in a casino in front of 1,100. The next night you're performing in front of 16.
Yeah.
And it taught you how to hone your skills. You should be able to kill in front of 1,000 people, because even if half of them are listening and laughing,
you're still picking
500.
up the vibe. It just having that many people in front of you, you feed off of.
Right.
It's the crickets and the four
kill
people
in front
there.
of 12.
Yeah.
That's the goal. And that's what taught you. And so shaping your set and seeing what other people did. And some nights you go first, some nights you go fifth, some nights. Anyway, I ultimately ended up winning the Seattle comedy competition, which put me in touch. The guy who ran it was a manager of people who had been on Last Comic Standing. And so because I won that, a couple months later, he got a call and they said, do you know anybody that wants to audition? And he picked me and Jeff, because he knew us both. Jeff being from Seattle, me having just done this competition that I lucked into. And that's what got me my audition, which changed my life entirely, because, and all those skills of people pushing me and trying to be in different rooms and going through the competitions let me kind of have that the competitive brain.
So how long was it from like first gig to getting on that show?
3 years.
3 years. That's pretty quick.
It was June, May or June of one year. And then 3 years later, I got my audition was in January. And then we got the callbacks and did like the semifinals and stuff in Vegas in March. And then we filmed The House in April, which was funny because we filmed The House and everything. And I knew I was already in the final 5. And then it didn't air till like Memorial Day. So we couldn't say anything. And what was crazy is like, I'm this dude who like literally I was just a Utah guy and I had nothing. So I'm on this show. I know, like I've already I've been to the Playboy Mansion. I've been on TV. I've been on all these things. I couldn't tell anybody. I hadn't made a dime. And so the day that we went back to the finale, when I know I'm going back to perform for my finale on a national TV show, my car got repossessed. Like my car got repossessed that going back to that. And I'm like, I just look, if you guys give me like a couple days, trust me, it's on TV. You can watch this, So it was an interesting parallel, but that changed my life. And it was just a matter of like, kind of like all of these things, working with people in business, I've learned a lot of their principles. And one of my friends, Garrett, he has this amazing principle called relationship capital, saying that the people and that network of people is more valuable than how much money you really have in your pocket, because your money goes away.
I agree 100%.
Your investments, all those things can be eaten right up. But the people you know will always be there, and there's so much potential in your relationships. And it's true, because I look back and I go, look, it's funny how I met this guy and this thing happened to happen and that got this, and it's all this connective tissue, which is really what kind of comedy and history and who you are. It's all that.
That's I like that a lot. Your network of people and the people you can pull from for any reason is always going to save your ass. I mean, I'm one to speak.
More than
speaking from
once.
Experience.
So, okay, so you do Last Comic.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's kind of an experience in and of itself.
Absolutely.
But what happens from there? So this was kind of the big kickoff for you on like a national stage.
Yeah.
Before that, you had clearly grown sort of regionally and became known as a comic in this neck of the woods.
Yeah.
But this was a big shift for you into something much bigger. Can you talk a little bit about sort of that experience? What was it like when you did finally make money off of this thing, and where it went from there?
It was nuts. I mean, because you go from nothing, like you say, a dude in Utah, and there's a lot of psychological stuff that comes with that, because for me, knowing that I had made the top 5 meant that I got to go on the tour, and the tour was like 82 cities in like 40 states. It was insane. It was 6 months. The show ended in August. We left a week after that, and we're on the road till January 31st.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's a long time to be on the road.
But we played it. I mean,
so did they actually did they put you in a little tiny van and say,
no,
they treated you right?
Oh my God.
That's good.
So first of all, we did the show, right? And we get, and I'm in my head going like, I know I'm funny in Utah, but like, am I funny in Chicago? Am I funny in Miami? Am I funny in Seattle? Am I funny in any of these rooms? I mean, we played we sold out the Hard Rock in Orlando for 2 nights. We did the House of Blues in Vegas, the Moore in Seattle, like the Pabst Theater, the Moore, dude. We did the Moore, and those, how it kind of goes up into that corner. It was shaking.
That
awesome. Building was shaking with energy, and I can think back about that.
Just a history in that building,
dude. I'm standing on a stage where like every hero from my music generation stood and played at one point. Like every comic that I had looked up to at that point had stand up, and so I kept thinking like, am I worthy of this? Am I, and I just it like, you get into your head about that kind of stuff. But I mean, then you go out on the road and you tell your jokes, and you realize like people are people and humans are humans, and that's really what we're doing. Is that it's not about like, well, I look like this and I'm a tattooed comic and and I'm this age and you're that age, or I'm single and you're married, or I'm married and you're single, or it's just, look, man, let's just laugh, right? And so it was a big eye opener. Plus I got a tour with like Louis Ramey and Jim Tabaret, who were like 20-year veterans, and watching what they could do every night, like their skill set. And then the other 2 people on the tour with us were Jeff Dye and Eliza Schlesinger, who are killers.
Yeah.
Like Eliza's killing it right now. Now, we were young and stupid, and we got into arguments and let egos and stuff get in the way back then. But that's funny is like, when you look back, like the best things we ever did was when we just like shut up and would be funny together, or let each other kind of, use each other. Like I have some really good memories of things where we came together, and it was like, it was an experience I was honored to be part of. I mean, you literally, you go, I get used to this. I'm getting off a plane, there's somebody with my name, and they put you in a car and they take you there, and like, you're being put up in the nicest. I mean, this wasn't like Days Inn. I mean, they were putting us up in really nice places. We were performing in amazing, and you'd get there and people were just taking care of you. And it was weird because like I didn't know who, like the first time we went to Vegas before the show had aired. So people were cheering and they were excited. No one didn't know who we were unless they were comedy fans and had watched some people on Comedy Central and knew some of the more recognizable names. And then we go back the second time, and I'm just walking through the casino going, all right, I'll just head over to where I'm supposed to be. And there's this line of people waiting to get in the theater, and they're going, there's Marcus. Hey, Marcus, hey. And I'm going, what
is going on?
What the hell? Oh, and then I'm like, oh yeah, this was on TV. Like it wasn't just me that saw this, and
that's gotta be
kind of a weird thing. Yeah.
It was, and it was because again, you realize like none of it has to do with you. Right. Like that tour, that was a big thing to kind of come to a realization too, is like, this isn't about me. Like I didn't sell the tickets on these tours. That tour was sold out before the top 5 was chosen. They were selling those tickets while the show was still on.
Right.
People just wanted to be entertained. So like, it was a big eye opener about how like, you know, if it hadn't been me, it would have been somebody else, and they would have got those experiences. So
Sure.
It's really cool to think back about. And then when you get off, you know, you go, okay, well, how can I keep this going?
Well, yeah, I was going to say that's got to set you up for kind of a hard time, because when
Right.
you start to tour on your own again, and even pretty successful comics, you know, still slum it a little bit when they go around. They still, you know, guys with TV shows and all this stuff, like, you know, they are back at the Motel 6, they are doing this and that, and they've been to the pinnacle, they've done some of this stuff. But, you know, even as a really well-known comic, when you start touring around again and you're on your own dime, you know, maybe the
colleges don't put you up in the nicest
or,
hotels. Yeah, they're just like, that's a red roof, it's down the street.
Yeah, and so to get I guess kind of pumped up by having this experience with the TV show, and then, you know, getting sort of the lap of luxury cruising around the country, and then to go back around and do it again on your own dime had to be a little bit of an eye opener too. Just
well,
you know,
and
because
through...
at that point, had you had a lot of touring experience? Like,
no,
I mean,
no, I had literally, after I won the Seattle comedy competition, I was like, that's it. People are going to hear about me. Mitch Hedberg won this, man. I'm set up, man. And then it was like, you tell owners and stuff, and they go, yeah, but have you been on TV, or what are the credits? Like, I can't just put that on a poster. Nobody gives a shit. And so it was interesting because, you know, it forced me to, and plus you have to, like, it's not just the momentum, but our show had been off the air for 6 months by the time I had gotten done with the obligatory tour that was awesome and made me money and got me out there and got me seen. But it was like, now I'm off. Okay, hey guys, now we can start booking colleges. Now we can start booking these things. Hey, is there still interest? I know the show is. So you kind of, you know, you have to keep your, you know, keep your name out there, keep yourself fresh. And then you have to kind of like figure out, well, okay, now I can't really tell the jokes that they saw on TV. I need to kind of write new stuff so that I don't just show up and have the same thing. So, you know, and it was like, I don't know how long I did that before I kind of transitioned into what I'm doing now with the act. Cause I mean, what's funny is right around the time that I did Last Comic, so in the break between when we filmed and when it aired, I came back to Salt Lake, obviously. And I hosted an open mic one night, and this dude got up on stage and killed, like just killed. And he got off, and I was like, dude, who are you? Like, where do you come from? How long you been doing comedy? That was killer. And he goes, oh, this is my first time.
What?
and I was like, yeah, it's exactly what I said.
Punched him in the face.
And I was just like, how dare you?
Back, had him thrown out.
And so we started talking, and we started, you know, we realized we're very similar aged, and we had a lot of the same tastes in music. And he, you know, he also had, you know, we were similar souls. And so I basically said, hey, dude, you want to start opening for me? And I took him on the road. Like he went on the road with me, and then did some of the, you know, he was there for some of the dates of the Last Comic tour right off the bat. Like, he would come and hang out, and then we would try to do gigs along the road on the way to meet people for tours and stuff. And this is Guy Seidel, who is my current comedy partner. He opened for me for years. We've spent so much time on the road together. He became a headliner in his own right, won a couple comedy competitions of his own. But what we would find is that the most fun we ever had was being in the car on the 6-hour drive from Boise to Salt Lake, bullshitting and listening to music and making fun of the things that we love, right? And so ultimately, with his background in being in bands and mine as well, he was a guitar player, I was a singer, and we thought, well, we should do something musical, something that isn't us writing silly songs or us forming a band because we're old and what the hell are we going to have to say about anything?
Right.
So we decided to write something new. And it had been a while for me to doing voices, because like I did voices on Last Comic, but I didn't want to be known for voices. I could tell that's what they wanted, because when I started in the process of this, I knew almost instantly, this isn't a competition. This is a cast, right? So like, there's a bunch of heavy hitters in this room that aren't getting asked back. Like, there are dudes who have been on TV. There are dudes who've been doing comedy 25 years, not getting asked back. What do they want? Okay, well, you know what? A tattooed dude from Salt Lake City who does impressions. That makes good TV.
Good. Yeah.
So I realized that because I went in to do my audition. I had 90 seconds to make a difference. And it was me in the Tempe Improv, 300 plus seat room, giant room, with 2 producers sitting 40 feet away from me.
And that's it. No other crowd interaction. They're not.
They don't give a shit. They don't care about your jokes. And I did a set without any impressions in it. And they were like, that's good. What else do you do? So I did something else. They said, no. It says here you do impressions. Do some.
God damn.
And I just rambled off some voices. And they went, that's funny. If you do that, you can come back tonight. I said, great. So I left and went and wrote an impression set, and they filmed, you know, some stuff around me, and I went, okay, I get this now. I get what I am. So my very first set, it's all I did was impressions. And I had to do that in front of Fred Willard, who's one of the funniest men in the world. Like, I was so intimidated by his presence, but I got the call, come back. So when I got the call back for the semifinals, and I kept realizing, look, at any time I can get sent off this show, I need to do something that's not impressions so that I can show people that if I go home, I'm not just a one-trick pony.
Well, that's the thing. You don't want to be stuck like one of these Terry Faders or something.
Where it's just where you're, well,
where you just get a,
yeah, he's stuck with his $150 million.
But you don't, but you don't want to be known for that, or like these Jeff Dunham types.
Well, but even those guys, I mean, look, you can find, but that's how I thought, because I was young, and at the time,
you're right,
my hour wasn't predominantly voices.
Yeah.
It was the few things that I did that I always wanted to introduce something into the act in an organic way, rather than going, what if Al Pacino was an ice cream guy?
Yeah.
Anybody want chocolate, right? Like, I wasn't just doing stupid, like, I wanted it to be organic. So the second set that I did, I said, I'm not going to do any voices. I'm going to do comedy. And I went out there and I got 2 standing ovations for this. And then the guys afterwards, they asked me, they went, okay, well, we heard you do voices, do something. And it was Steve Shrippa and Richard Belzer. And so I thought, well, I'll do some, they're Italian guys. So I went right into Walken. I started doing my Christopher Walken. I said, hey, ask me again. I'm gonna stab you in the face with a soldering iron, right? I just accessed the line, and that was it. They all went up. So I got moved on, got put into the show. But I started noticing something. I started noticing, like, after that night, like, I was walking through the halls of, like, after it ended, and I was so excited because I had made it through, and I was in the top 12, and they had made it happen. Like, it was on camera. I was going to be on this show, and one of the producers rode past me in a golf cart and went, "Hey, good set tonight. Do voices next time, okay?" And I just went, "That's what they want." And then we would do the interviews. What we did today, right? And they would have everybody come into the little confessional room or whatever, and we'd film that, and they'd have me talk about it. And I always tried to, let my personality come through. And then they go, "That's funny. Do it as Adam Sandler." And so I go, "Okay, so today we went down to the thing, and then and I would do that, and I would just silliness. And then when the show aired, that's all they used. They kept using this. So it looked like Marcus did Christopher Walken and Adam Sandler, and that was it. And that's all he did. And the message boards lit me up. I got so much hate. Like, there was one dude who said, like, after my first episode aired, I hope this dude dies before the second episode so I don't have to see any more of his shitty jokes. And I'm a dude who's like, again, my car got repossessed. I'm trying here.
Right.
And people got into my head. Like, people started talking about
how I can't even imagine
impressions aren't real. Like, I'm just a ventriloquist. That's not real comedy. And I wanted to prove myself, because I'm like, I'm not just a tourist. I'm young, I'm green, but, like, I want to be able to stand on stage with, like, my heroes and do what they do. So, for honesty, I didn't do impressions in my act for 3 or 4 years after Last Comic Standing. I was like, I'll prove to you guys I can do hours. I don't need to do voices. I'm a comic. And I look back on that now, and granted, yes, I came up with a lot of material and it sharpened my writing skills, but, like, I literally let haters take a skill set away from me. And so when me and Guy sat down to write a show, we decided we were going to write a musical impression show where we were going to create impressions in a way nobody had ever heard. So it was going to be different. And so what I did was we kind of wrote this show based around montages and mashups of music. And then I taught myself how to sing like 50, 60 different people, trying to understand where their sounds would come from. And then we put this all together into a show. And it was a show that we discovered that we could accidentally do 100% G-rated if we had to. So now not only have we opened up an entire new door with this musical show, but we've opened up the world of corporate entertainment. And so that's, to be honest, at this point in our careers, 95% of what we do are corporate or private events where we host, excuse me there. Let's try that again. Where we host or perform at conventions. We host or perform at, retreats. We are the kind of act that comes in when you don't want a comic who's going to divide a room. You don't need a juggler or an improv act. You want two seasoned professionals who can unite a room through music, because even if you don't know the songs, you understand music, you understand rhythm. That's what's so great about DJ. It's connecting a room full of people on a feeling of a beat, and then keeping that beat alive and knowing you're going through these peaks and these valleys, right?
And I ride like what I see, if like the demographic shifts through the night, I shift the music with it.
Exactly.
And then it takes someone that's been around the corner to be able to do that, because most of the guys are just looking at the top 50 and going off of that.
Right.
But if you got grandma and grandpa over there, and you got, you literally just have to look at the people in front of you and try and play to them.
Well, and that's the thing. Besides just your comedy experience, but your music, your time in the band, like you've probably gotten such honed skills for this stuff. Like you've kind of crafted where you landed now over the course of these last 20 years.
Absolutely.
Because, to be able to read the room, not just from a funny perspective, but from a musical perspective as well, and understand music well enough to grab the right song to do, to please that room or that audience. That's more than just stand up. That's more than just, that really does require having been a musician first.
Right. And the connectivity that exists there, like between audience and performer, just there is like this kind of like fluid musicality to laughter, right? Like if I'm doing a show and I'm doing an hour, I don't want it to be ha 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 ha. Right, I want it to be.
You slowly build it up. Yeah,
like you're almost on top of this wave, right?
That's funny. I never really thought of comedy being, because that's kind of how I do my sets. As you start, you warm them up, you build, peak hour, then you slow them down, you play the RB, get them go home and leave.
It's exactly what you do. And if you came in and it was just you'd go, okay, I can't.
That's why the dude that comes in and starts at 10 o'clock and does a peak hour set, you want to slap him upside the face, because where do you go from there?
To his room. Yeah, exactly. And so that's what's so amazing about, like, so you start realizing, like, music and comedy and being able to have moments, like, even if you're not telling a joke, being able to have a moment with just a voice or a bit, or being able to just hear your audience as they kind of like realize that their favorite songs are all the same, or that these voices are the same, these moments, and I love it, and because of that, because of getting into the corporate world, that kind of introduced me to a lot of people, CEOs, business owners, companies with sales forces that I would perform for, that you'd start talking and you realize, like, their CEO is funny. He has a lot of personality. Or public speakers, they're funny. They have a lot of personality, but what they don't have is the ability to shape that. Right. I don't know how many times I've seen a CEO starts thinking, telling a joke, and he gets way off into the weeds, and then he goes, okay, I'm sorry, where was I? Right. Rather than just having that fluid forward momentum. Right. So it's basically, I realized that there was this huge hole in the world, in the world of business, of somebody who could take a message, an idea, content, whatever it is, and shape it and get people to think. My goal in coaching is not to turn people into stand-up comics. It's to make people think like stand-up comics. What we do so well is we look at the mundane and we find the joy in it. We look at a dinner with our wife, or standing in line at the DMV, any number of ridiculous, stupid, basic stock comedy premises, and airplane food, ATMs, right? And people find the funny in those moments. And so being able to, like, take that and have somebody learn that skill and be able to, kind of ignite a creative spark inside them is amazing, because, I don't know, it's just like this weekend. I just got back from 4 days in Austin. The first 2 days, me and Guy performed at a convention, and then hosted a convention, performed at a convention. And then he went home, and I spent 2 days shadowing a client's seminar in Austin. He's a public speaking coach that teaches amazing public speakers. I mean, people who are giving TEDx talks, people who are making millions of dollars in a year, how to become better at their brand, how to become better. And he, very humbly, I can say this, hired me to help him in part of his presentation. He came to me with an idea of wanting to create a character. Said, I have this idea. It's been kicking around in my head for years, and I don't know how to put it. I don't know how to shape it. I just have ideas. And I went, great, let's talk. So I'd never met this guy. He lived in Austin. I lived here. We Skyped. We did this entire process over a computer screen. And in 7 weeks of sitting down with him, we took this character from an idea into a fully formed, realized character that I watched him perform on stage in front of a room full of heavy home run hitters this weekend and kill.
That's awesome.
He did 3 days of being on stage for over 10 hours a day. And that 10, 15-minute segment was one of the most memorable things, and the people kept talking about. To watch him, I mean, he wanted to have an accent. He couldn't do accents. We worked on trying to teach him to do an accent, which taught me how to start teaching people how to do an accent. I had to literally listen to his voice and understand where it came from so I could teach him that. Teaching him how to write a joke efficiently. He would want to talk about music. Okay, so where's the funny in that? Where's the funny in Michael Jackson? Where's the funny in Led Zeppelin? Well, these things you're mentioning. And then watching his skills, because again, I mean, most of the people I work with are operating at a very high level. Watch his creative process and then not really understanding what a big deal he was, and going to his event and seeing how people pay thousands and thousands of dollars for an hour of his time one-on-one with coaching. And I got to spend these hours with him every Saturday.
Well, just having him come to you as a coach.
And being part of his creative process, being able to see how a man like that you can give him tools. And within 7 weeks, he can learn not only do an accent, but stay in it for 10, 15 minutes at a time, riff, listen to the jokes, find the funny. If the audience is listening, add another joke that he wants to do and access that character on command. And that's what's so incredible about what we do, is being able to access that part of ourselves that says, great, you need me to perform. Great, you need me to be, you need me to fill more time. You know, what kind of performer do I need to be? Do they need me to be super energetic? Do they need me to be more mellow? Do I need to be a little more slick? Do I need to be a little more coy? I've got a whole bunch of different layers. We're all multifaceted beings, and as performers, we should be able to access any of that. So it really, it's this really fun and creative process that, to be honest, I'm loving so much that I believe someday it will probably overtake what I do with comedy. I mean, I'm busier now with coaching than I am with comedy. And that's to be fair. I mean, you're not doing gigs every single day, right? Sure. It's weekends and a few things like this. But like I'm literally like, this morning I had 2 clients, and then on the way in, another client, one of my guys from Vegas, called me and needed, to talk to me for a few minutes about an idea that he had. And it's awesome. It's awesome to be part of the creative process of other people, because a lot of times you want to be funny and not everything's in your own voice.
Well, it's cool too, because it's a really specialized skill set that you've got. Like, so, I mean, so what you can offer to somebody is completely different than like your run-of-the-mill business coach.
Anybody.
And but I would imagine from a comic, you can pick up a lot of things about being improvisational and sort of, just public speaking and how to handle your body and all that stuff that you may not get from your typical business coach or your guy that's just trying to help you be more efficient or optimize your business. Or, like, I think what they're getting from you is a totally different experience.
Yeah.
So, and it seems like you're perfectly tailored for it. Like, I mean, it's, all these years experience led to being really good at that.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. We should go back though and say just quickly, the show that you're talking about with Guy is called Marcus and Guy. You guys, I guess, are available to be booked and things like that. You can find out more about it at marcusandguy.com. They've got a fun clip reel and stuff like that. So do go back and check that out for the stand-up side, because it's pretty fun. It's really cool. When I first heard about it, I expected sort of maybe like a Tenacious D kind of thing, and which, don't get me wrong, I'd have been thrilled for, because I love that.
You got to talk about the D.
That's right.
The Eggs Podcast, we're rocking it down. The Eggs Podcast, it's rocking your town, Mr. Mo.
I'm going to sample that.
I was going to say, hurry up and cut that. Hashtag Tenacious D.
Tenacious D. We'll drop for you there.
That's right. Yeah, no, God, we're going to have to keep them around for a little while. Yeah. Get all these drops from the rich and famous.
Sure.
So let's go back a little bit to comedy. These are a little bit generic, but some of the things that I think are funny. Both Mike and I listen to a lot of podcasts and listen to a lot of different comedians. And, some of the things we always like to hear about are like sort of the horror stories, life on the road. And as a comic, you probably have some. Can you maybe talk a little bit about, a bad gig or a crazy situation or something?
I mean, I've had a lot of stuff happen to me throughout the years. I mean, I had a guy try to fight me on stage once.
I had that happen 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. And the funny thing was, it was like ultimately, like, here's my overall disclaimer. I have now realized why I do comedy. That's why I love to do. I don't mind doing clean comedy. I don't mind doing things that are innocuous. And there's sometimes when I can realize that maybe a joke of mine had been confrontational when it shouldn't have been. I remember telling a joke, and it was basically a Back to the Future joke, but it had a spin on reality or something. And there was a guy in the audience who must have had a family member who had Parkinson's or something. The joke, and I apologize. I'm not telling this joke to get a laugh. I'm telling the joke so I can illustrate this point. The joke was like about the idea that, Back to the Future had happened, and you gone into the future, like now's the future, and we don't really have it. It was basically, I was doing that bit before it was a meme, And I mean, it's not groundbreaking or anything, but I was like, what if that had really happened and Doc had gone into the actual future and he was like, it's terrible. You know, the economy's bad and this and that, and the animals are going extinct. And Marty'd go, what about my future? And the punchline of this joke was, I don't know, I think it's a little shaky. It was a dumb joke that was designed to get a cheap laugh.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't a joke at the expense of Parkinson's. I will say that it was a joke that used wordplay, but now I would never do that because I don't want to ever have to explain a joke like this. I feel like a jackass right now because I feel like somebody's out there going, Bill, that wasn't funny. And you know what? You're probably right. It wasn't. And I don't do those anymore. But this guy must have been personally affected by it and got really pissed. And so I went back at him instead of just going, I'm sorry. Right. Like, which I should have. And as a more mature man, that's what I would do. But my take was, well, like, oh, you didn't say anything through this entire show about everything else I made fun of. Now you pipe up, you know, and he started getting pissy. And then he tried to come up on the stage at me. And I was like, you know, I look back on that now as how poorly I handled that. And I think most of my nightmares were things like that. The real nightmare I have is when you go to a show and there's no one.
Yeah.
Which I did a college gig one time at the University of Houston that they didn't advertise for.
Oh, excellent.
And so I got my check. I mean, it wasn't like it was based on attendance, and I felt terrible, but like they put me up in this theater that probably sat 1,200 and maybe 15 people showed up.
Oh, man.
And they didn't even sit together. Like they were like in the corner and like there was 3 here. And so I said, all right, guys, this isn't going to work. I said, come on. Everybody in this audience get up on stage, and I made them sit around me in a circle, and I did the show like story time.
You know what though? They're gonna go back and they're gonna remember. Do you remember that one show we went to forever ago, and he got us up on stage? It was odd. Like,
dude, we've had some shows like that. We had a show. Is that
was?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. Was it me? No, we had a show at Ogden in Wise Guys one time. And the power cut out in the middle of the show, and so everybody propped their phones up and turned their phone light on, and it lit the room up in this magical way. And we didn't have the ability to play the guitar through the house, so guys just unplugged acoustic. And we just did this acoustic.
I bet you're like
session.
getting chills just thinking of that.
It was dope.
You know what I mean? Just those kind of You get those one shows where you're just like, that was epic.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like, you know, oh, there was 2,000 people losing their mind.
Right.
It's like the weird stuff that catches you off guard, and it's just cool.
Well, and it's one of those like lemon into lemonade kind of moments, you know. I mean, being able to actually take this situation that could have been really horrible. You could have just pouted yourself off stage, you know, but instead you turned it into something that was magical for 12 or 15 people. But you know, but for them it was really magical.
We had one. It's always timing. Here's the two things. Timing is the only thing that bothers me if it gets thrown off, and that's either timing in what we're doing or timing in when we go on. We had a show one time, Alabama, maybe. It was this dentist convention, and we get there, and we'd sound check, we did all our stuff, we were all set up. And the guy who hired us, like, we're kind of hanging out in the room, and everybody had gotten up to get food, and he comes back in the room, and he goes, "Oh yeah, sorry everybody, Marcus and Guy are here. They're gonna do a skit." And so there was no introduction. It had been just when people had gone to get food and wanted to sit and visit. And then right as soon as we started, the photographer in the back with the backdrop started taking pictures. So we literally performed to a room full of people who could give 2 shits less that we were on stage.
Yeah. They weren't prepped for it. Well, they're in the middle of like taking a break.
And what can we say? It's their party.
Yeah.
Right? We can't be like, guys, you know, we just went, all right, we're just going to do it. And the girl that we'd been dealing with, like the girl that we'd been emailing and everything, she pulled a chair right up next to stage. She goes, "You guys are doing great." And I'm like, oh my God.
You just made it worse.
Oh yeah. No.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. But like, so either the timing of when we go on, or like, you know, when hecklers, listen, if you have ever gone to a show and yelled something out, don't. Because I'll tell you right now, no one can understand what you're saying. And even if we can, it probably doesn't matter, right? Hecklers never yell something out at the right time. Yeah. It's always like you're telling a joke and then they're like, "Dun, and you go, what? Well, I don't know what that is. Yeah. Do I address it? Do I ignore it?
It's because they're the drunk guy, so they just took 30 seconds to process the prior joke. And now they're responding to it.
And if I have to break my rhythm to go after you or to go, "Hey man, what?" You know, like sometimes things like that are really funny, but for the most part, like people like that, like there was this lady at a show we had a while ago, and it was like she'd say something and we go, "What do you What'd you say?
Honestly, I can't hear you.
And
like,
then she wouldn't say anything. So we'd start up again. We'd start going, and then she'd go, and you go, oh my! I gave you the opportunity to say this a second ago.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that frustrates me.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, like I said, if you just sit back and you let us do our job, you're gonna have a great time.
It throws you out of your rhythm. You get into you're processing. All right, that killed. This killed. I'm gonna do this next, but
right.
Shut up! You just threw me off.
Well,
and then
yeah.
you can't think of it, and it throws it all off.
When you start playing the room to that one asshole who really, we don't care that much about, but now we have to please that person.
Right. And not everybody can. And that's the other thing about it is like, I can hear her maybe because she's on my right side, but the other side of the room isn't necessarily being bothered by her. But so now I'm going after a person that they haven't really seen. It hasn't affected their night, but now I'm doing that. So like, am I the asshole? Right. It's just one of those things where like, I would just say most people here. Okay. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm just going to make sure you understand this. You are never making the show better by participating. We've got it. So many people have that myth. You know what? They like it. They like it when you say stuff. It's part of the show. Just if you do that,
nailed
they
that
love
person
it.
on the head. By the way,
No,
she's
they
at
like
every
it.
show.
They
That's
like
always
when
her.
you're
It's
there.
always her.
I'm gonna say something. He's gonna love it.
Yeah.
I've had people who
Dude,
literally talk the entire show and then come up afterwards, like to try to get a picture. Like, oh my god, let's get. I'm like, no, you ruined this show. Get out of my face, you clueless moron. There's no reward for that behavior.
DJing are so on point.
Well, it's because it's the same crowd.
That's
right?
the church. That's
Play Hall & Oates.
Exactly.
Do you have Hall & Oates?
But it's
You're
not
like,
normally Hall & Oates. It's usually like the 2 Chainz or the
anything
worst song on earth.
I would be bothering you for some.
Yeah.
Anything
Just
with
can't
Cardi
go
B
for
in it.
that. Oh, no can do.
If it was Hall & Oates, I'd play it.
Yeah, right.
That's
Like,
the thing.
yeah, I don't know why she was asking for that. She'd ask for something worse. Play that new Tiesto with Skesto in it. I like Tiesto and Skesto.
Yeah, it's gonna be something with Cardi B. That's,
Right.
that's
100%.
Jimmy Post Malone. Play some Post Malone.
And it's always the slow song at peak hour. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that.
I just want to sway and hold my drink in the air. I've got my shoes in this hand and my string in this hand. And I don't even know where my phone is. Woo! Liberating. Those people
they're the worst.
So many of them.
Oh my god.
Well, and it's funny. So speaking of timing, we were talking a little bit before the show about this local comedian guy this night, a guy named Aaron Woodall. And I had the bright idea a few years ago. I was responsible for running the local ad. It's Utah Ad Fed Addies, the ad awards. And they'd always brought in, different guys from the ad business or whatever to MC. And I had this great idea. I was like, hey, we're going to get a comic. Let's bring in a comedian because they know how to run a room. They'll be so great. And, to your point about timing, he came out about the time they were doing meals and all this other stuff, but the show's running behind. So we got to get going. So just get out there and do your thing. And I mean, I don't think I've ever been more embarrassed by like sort of my peers in the industry as I was with the way they treated him. But it was that sort of thing, they're wrapped up in their meals, they're talking to each other and they don't give a rip what he's doing on stage. Meanwhile, he's trying to run the night. And I don't know where he's at really in his career these days, or, I assume he's grown and stuff. He was pretty young then. I mean, this is 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah,
and I thought he was really good. He came very prepared, lots of good material and stuff. And these guys just didn't give him a chance at all. But it was all, like you're saying, is timing,
Yeah. Yeah. If you have an event, just so you know, wait till dessert. Like we tell people that, like, when should we bring you on? I say, no. Wait till they're eating the dessert and they start doing this. And then the second they do that, we'll go, ladies and gentlemen. And then we'll have their attention because they want to sit back. They've talked. And but that's the thing is that understanding how to set yourself up for success as well. Like there's a lot of things in comedy too that are parallels with business that people don't really think about. Like at some point you have to start going, okay, how much am I worth? At some point somebody's going to ask, how much is an hour of your time worth?
Yeah.
And guess what? An hour of my time has grown in value. Like I think about that as the fact that I'm my brand, I'm my company, right? So back in the day, I drove to Bozeman, Montana one day. They called me at 9 a.m. said, can you be in Bozeman tonight for $200? And I drove to Bozeman 10 hours so I could do an hour of time because that's how much it was worth. When
I moved from Seattle to here, I didn't have any gigs here. So I would drive back to Seattle for $400.
Yeah, that's it.
Just to stay, just to keep the venue and the connections and
exactly right.
And I did that for like, I don't know, 6-7 months. And then I started raising my rates for Seattle specifically because that's where my market was. And now I only go back for weddings and high dollar events now.
Right.
And locally here, I'll still do the bar gigs for, $400 roughly. And then, depending on the weekend, sometimes I just don't work because it's not worth my time anymore.
Yeah.
So.
And I've turned down gigs just so I can make sure that my brand is what it is. Like there's a reason. Look, I don't necessarily agree that headphones should cost $500, but guess what? Beats isn't going to sell a $19.99 option because that ruins their brand.
100%.
I bought the latest iPhone because I'm sold on the brand. I'm sold on the culture. I'm part of it. And I wanted the features. I wanted this in my life.
Having that mentality to think of yourself as a brand, you really have to. It's so weird. I've talked about this before on the show, but just picking like a name or like a persona. Like I go by DJ Ontic, and it's like on time. It's like I show up on time and I keep the beats on time.
Right.
But just defining myself as DJ Ontic and like having people, hey, yo, Ontic, what's up? It's like it the first little bit, it threw me off. And then I had to start thinking, okay, so what is my brand? How do I want to sell this?
Right.
And then you start developing your value and going up in pricing. And it's weird to think like that.
It is weird to put a number on yourself.
Yeah.
It is weird to say that and to go, look, and especially for people like us, because a lot of people, when they get hired, it's not, look, we're being hired on for a job. This job might take a couple months. We don't know exactly how long. We're here till the job's finished. My job is an hour of my time, or an hour and a half, or it's 2 shows in one night. And so I have to be able to go, this is how much my time's worth. And then when I got into the coaching business, I had to do the same thing. I started with one client and I based my sales around that. And what he paid me is what I quoted my other clients. And now I'm into a position where I'm fully aware of the results that I'm able to get people in this. And so my prices have gone up for coaching because my ability to get things done, my efficiency quota is insane.
Well, and there's a lot of stuff that most of your clients don't see too, like the time it takes to get prepared for an event. So say I'm going to do a wedding and they want disco. Now I got to go spend 5 hours of my time figuring it out, and just getting ready for this one event. And that's on top of.
Well, and it's not even that. Like in a coaching space like this, I mean, he's being paid for a lifetime of crafting this ability. And so, I mean, that's worth something, and it's not a number of hours. It's a collective.
It's a collective thing. It's an experience. And what I do is all my rates are based on people basically keeping me on retainer. I mean, you can hire me for one-offs. That's fine. It's going to cost you more. But if you hire me on a retainer and you keep me on and you go, look, because you're right. You're right. If somebody's got a presentation, guess what? You need to start thinking about it months in advance. My clients, because I understand this, they don't have 24 hours a day to think about their creative spark because they've got businesses to run, families to be part of. They have money matters. They have employees. They have a lot of things that they have to deal with. And I am 1 hour of their day. So I understand how important that hour is. When you sit down with me and you have 1 hour, guess what? We are going to focus on what you need to get done today. A lot of people, a lot of coaches, different people like, exercises or this or that. I mean, everybody wants to be trained differently. So just like an audience, every client that I deal with, I have to look at and go, okay, who are you and how do I need to teach you? And so it's as much of a challenge and an experience for me, but also at the same time, like to be able to go, look, we're going to work together for 3 months. And in that 3 months, you're going to get this much, this much of my time. Not only is that, but I'm going to be able to punch up scripts. I'm going to be able to help you with content. I'm going to be keeping my ideas open and updating our shared documents so that you can see my progress of making these jokes more efficient. I'm going to write in your voice, not in mine. I'm going to craft this to be about you. And then that way, what I'm doing is, like you're saying, I'm building them a skill set so that they, when they have their gig, can pull from their playlist of all of the different things that we've accessed in them. So if they are doing a dinner and they need to be able to crack a joke up front and then make sure that throughout the night they understand, and even understanding laughter is going to help you understand any emotional response in a thing. It's going to understand like how much sympathy do I need? How much of the sad story do I tell? Everybody's got this hero story, right? And they want to go, well, I overcame this and I overcame that. Great. We've all overcome that. But what makes it from something that we just go, oh, and we feel when we're listening to it, to something that sticks with us so much so that we can quote a comedy special 25 years later and it still makes us laugh as hard as when we were watching it as 13-year-olds when we shouldn't be. And that's really what we want to do is resonance and long-term just change in your thought process, making people, I'm not going to be able to tell you about your business. I'm not going to be able to tell you how to run your business, but I'm going to give you a better a new way to look at it. I'm not going to tell you how to make money, but I'm going to help you understand better through honesty and the ability to recognize those creative parts of yourself, why you're making money, like what's your motivation for doing the things you do. And so it's just fascinating and can really benefit, I think, anybody who's operating at a level that they just want to get to those skills to separate them from literally everybody else in the room.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you're literally building emotional intelligence, you know, and just like anything else, you're flexing that brain muscle or your, you know, communication skills or your listening skills or whatever it is. And of course, those things translate across everything, you know, whether it's sitting in a boardroom, speaking to your employees, you know, working one-on-one with an employee, or going back home and working with your wife or your family. You know, I mean, those skills are invaluable. And so, I mean, yes, they're maybe not, you know, how you could maybe better spend money this year.
Right.
But it is, you know, how you're going to be smarter about everything else you do.
Yep.
Especially nowadays, it seems like in this society, you know, relationships are such a big issue, and the type of relationship you have with employees and coworkers and things is so key, that being able to communicate is maybe as important as ever.
Right.
You know, back in the day, maybe you could just sort of shut people out and do whatever you want and just bark orders or whatever.
Even these days,
anymore.
everyone's like text and email, and actually communicating in person it's like you don't see people just having conversations anymore.
Right.
You know, when's the last time you called someone and talked to them on the phone for an hour? It
Right.
just doesn't happen.
Right.
You're
100% true with that. But the thing is that not only does it make us better in-person communicators and better to be able to read rooms and you know, connect with a group full of people that we're speaking with live, but it also gives us the thought process to be able to go, look, I'm talking through a microphone and I can't hear that people are maybe laughing or responding or reacting or connecting to what I'm saying. But I'm saying it in a way that I hope and I believe is landing. Like still have my timing through a microphone. If I do radio, I have to know that the jokes I'm doing are funny and are going to bring people to my show. I used to fill in for Big Buddha on Fox back before I did Last Comic. And you're literally sitting there looking into a dead microphone or a dead camera reflection, just a lens. You can't see the people back in the studio. You can't hear anybody laughing. You've got a little bit of an earpiece, but for the most part, a lot of times that cut out and you just kind of were trusting that it was happening. But the ability to be able to also have those creative processes, because we do live in a world where we text, we do live in a world where we write, we do live in a world where we record videos. So say you're a CEO or you're a public speaker, you're an influencer, right? Okay, you've got 30 seconds. So you got 60 seconds on Instagram to make a video. How do we make this? How do we have a beginning, middle, and end? Give it a narrative, not ramble, get to the point, maybe put a joke in there, maybe have something that's efficient. What is your creative process and how can we do it in 60 seconds? Because I mean, think about that. Like I said, my first audition was 90 seconds. How many people have that little of a time to make impressions?
Yeah,
you know, most people you got 10 minutes to, you know, give me your speech.
I've seen like people spend 5 minutes setting up for a joke. For one joke,
right?
You know,
but anybody, and this is a thing, anybody who's got money, anybody who I've learned this, anybody who is going to hire us is not going to sit down. Anybody who's going to write the check to hire us is not going to sit down and watch 30 minutes of what I do.
Yeah,
I'm going to send them a 3-minute clip and go, here's what it is. This is, I need to sell you this, get you on board, get you connected, and get you affected personally so that you can go, oh, I can see how my people would laugh at this. That's what you want to do inside 30 seconds, inside 60 seconds, whatever it is, right? So, and that includes tweets, that includes Instagram posts, that includes you. And I'm not going to tell you how to do this, but I'm going to get you to a place of efficiency in your thinking so that when you approach these things, you understand how quickly do I get to my message. It's not about my content. Right. That's one of the things that in business, people are just my content.
Yeah, that's the buzzword right now.
Who cares? Who cares?
Yeah.
Honestly, if as a comic, I want you to understand this metaphor, business people, as a comic, as something that you might go and watch, as you've all maybe been to a comedy club, you watched a comedy special, right? If a comic got up on stage and went, this show's about my jokes and I'm going to tell all these jokes. And then boy, if they don't get out, then this show isn't good. No, you go out there and you go, I have an idea of what I want to do. I got things I want to say. And you listen to your audience. Now, granted, if you're recording a comedy special, you might know what you're wanting to get on film. But even those, I'm guaranteeing that they do longer. They don't just film 45 minutes. They probably film an hour and a half and whittle it back down.
Chop it down.
Right? So the fact of the matter is that we, you know, we need to be able to have that mindset in our business when we go forward, because a lot of people do not have the ability to be present in their message, to stand on a stage and listen to their audience, or to listen to their audience online, to be aware of them and to remove themselves from the process of delivering that content. Our content is in service of our audience, right? Like, my jokes aren't about me. My jokes are about making my audience have a good time. And if I'm telling something and I can tell they don't like it, then move. Do something else. Make them laugh. That's your job, right? Get to the funny, get to the point, get to what you're trying to say. And that's, that's something that a lot of people don't have. And
well, yeah, and I think that's, this sort of, I guess, egomania that's running rampant these days.
Right.
Is everybody assumes, hey, I'm putting something out on Instagram, therefore it's important, therefore you should care.
The entitlement of that we all have our own pages.
Yeah, and I mean, but it carries that way all the way to corporate too. It's funny. Just a perfect example of this. It just happened sort of recently, and we're getting kind of long, so we'll cut it off here pretty quick.
All good.
So don't know if you got that.
I don't.
Another film shooter.
To be honest, no. I know I had multiple client stuff today. I'm
Busy
good,
day.
So we can keep talking.
Okay, cool. Well, then I won't rush you because we're having a good time.
This is really fun.
But so I have a client that I've been kind of wooing and working on for a little bit. They're a big company, maybe the biggest I've ever worked with, actually. And I sent them, our very first proposal, right? And I took tons of time, like he just wanted a proposal, but I was like, okay, I got to take like a week. I'm going to lay this thing out. It's going to have portfolio work in it, testimonials, just everything, soup to nuts, the entire process. There's 2 pages in the document that allude to the pricing and what we're going to deliver for the money. The other 48 pages are portfolio work and things like that. I go down for a sit down meeting with him the other day. He's like, hey, can you come in? I want to talk about your proposal, stuff like that. So I go sit down with the guy. He's like, proposal's really great, all this stuff. He's like, can you just kind of reiterate what's it going to do? He's like, I tried to look at it, I just don't have time. And, and I was
that was like 40 hours of my
dude,
time.
you have no idea. Like, if I was billing for that, you couldn't afford me. But nonetheless, so he looked at it, and then he's like, okay, so we need you, to propose this thing. He's like, this time just cut to the chase, And so the second batch of proposals I sent, about 4 pages, because I just couldn't bring myself to not have an intro and an outro page. But no friendly letter about why you should work with us, or look at all our shiny clients and everybody we've worked with. It's what we're going to do, what it's going to cost. How do you feel about it? Yeah. And I actually just got word before the show that both were approved. Post haste, 24 hours, no time to.
Exactly.
And that was the point, though, is these people are busy. They don't have time for me to sit and bloat myself up and talk about how great I am. It's, what are you going to do and what's it going to cost me?
We had Johnny from OPM on a while ago. He's a band from LA, and he used to work in as a label rep or something.
Yeah, he was an A&R rep.
Rep.
Okay.
And he said, like, he'd get these CDs in the mail, and they'd be all, like, crazy with him, like send in like crazy boxes really or cigar boxes. Yeah, just whatever. He just break it open, throw the other shit away, and listen to the first 30 seconds. If he didn't like it, he'd move on to the next one, because that's all he has time for.
Yeah, because as an A&R guy,
isn't that how much? And that's a good metaphor for the consumer.
Yeah,
I've got 30. Look, if a song comes on my radio, I'm not gonna be like, I'll give this song 6 minutes. Yeah. No, look, you got to catch me.
Well, and to be perfectly honest, 30 seconds might be too long.
Exactly.
I mean, right? It might be 5 seconds.
Look,
like, I'm going to get a vibe.
It's the same thing, right? Like, look, we all can read energy, right? Like, that's something we do. Whether you think about it or not, you have met bunches of people in your life. Think about that right now. Every one of you that's listening, close your eyes and think about all the people you've met. And all of you can probably access at least 1 or 2 people out there that gave you the creeps. Like, you go, that's interesting. And the people that you click with, oh my God, I just love you. I click with you, right? Because we can all read energy, right? And so, like, that is a skill that I believe people need to be able to adapt to along like a large form, right? To be able to go, okay, look, I need to not only be able to read a live energy, but if I'm approaching a client, I need to be able to read my client. If I'm sitting in a room and he's telling me what I want, I need to be able to not only go, okay, yes, my skills, my content, my this, I need to be able to go, okay, who is this dude? All right, this is him. Okay. Just like an audience, what does he do? Okay. Look at his walls. All right. He's got music memorabilia. He's got this. Like, I've talked to CEOs of companies that are $1 million companies, and I don't talk to them about their business. I talk to them about, dude, that's a dope Pink Floyd collectible you have. Right. And then we start going down a trail, and then this guy goes, oh man, okay, now I get who you are. Right, you're the dude who inspires me to talk about the things that I like, and then that excites me.
Do you ever do sales?
Yeah, years ago I've done sales, and I've also done sales training doing this, teaching sales forces how to figure how to.
I think that's something that you kind of pick up on subliminally if you've done sales, is you kind of mirror the person that you're talking to.
Right.
And I don't know if it's like, I'm sure there's coaching people that actually tell you to do that, but I think that's just something, you go and you hang out with the guy, he's out there washing his car, you start talking about the car, and
but it's not even mirroring, because I think mirroring is, it's a mimic.
Yeah.
Right.
Trick.
It's being genuinely interested. Like I can't just mimic my audience's energy. I have to be genuinely interested in who they are. I don't hang out in green rooms before my show. I stand in the back of a room.
I do the same thing. I'll
I
walk
listen.
in and I listen to what's on the jukebox.
Right.
And I start with
Who are
similar
these
music.
people?
And then I kind of format my night around that.
And he's not lying. We offered him the green room, here at the studio, and he didn't take it. He's not messing around.
I don't like it. I like to know the people. Are they talking? Are they buzzing? Are they quiet? Are they excited? Are they ready? Are they, who are these people? Like that's what fascinates me, is who are these people, right? And if you don't care about who the people you're performing for are, or the people you're selling for, the people you're marketing to, the people that you're creating your product for, if you don't care about that, then what are you doing? Honestly, what are you doing? If you don't care about about the people you're doing it for, what are you doing? Are you doing it for the money? It's a really good question to ask yourself. And this is something that is I don't only use in comedy, but I use in my life. I say, what's my motivation? I ask myself that literally for most every decision I make. What's my motivation? What's my motivation for doing this show? Is my motivation for doing the show strictly the money? Or is my motivation for the show to make sure that I come in here and I absolutely destroy, so that these people are like, that was the best event we've ever been to, so that they go home and they leave there. And I understand that everybody that attends that event, they probably got a +1 that probably works somewhere else and might have an event. I don't know how many times I've gone in and done that and then had 3 or 4 gigs from one event or another.
It happens all the time.
Every time.
Or the wedding that you do and you crush it, and then their sister's getting married the next summer and they call you back. And then their cousin, and people that are at it
builds, right? It's relationship capital. And every time you get on that stage, it's in purpose of like building that circle. I've had people who've literally come up to me after shows and gone, "Oh my God, this is like the 7th time we've seen you." And every time we come, we bring new people. And you're like, wow.
Thank you. What the heck is that?
I think that an angel just got its wings. I'm fairly certain that then.
Yeah, do you have a Jimmy Stewart?
I think
could be doing
well, there you go. Every time a bell rings.
What is that?
It sounds like a unicorn.
Well,
fart.
so we're doing the live stream through his computer, and so we're sending the feed from his computer back through the mixer.
Oh, that's fine.
So if he's getting an update,
it's when whenever I say something brilliant. The
dang.
And everybody goes, listen to this.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything,
or
but
what
we're
it
an
is.
hour and 20 in, and that was
that's
the
the first
thing,
one.
so.
Yeah, I know. It's like they're not all winners.
No, but I think one of the things that you're kind of landing on, and I think it's maybe the key here, and it's really funny because it's the most obvious thing in the world. It's the simplest thing in the world, but it goes back to just being authentic.
Absolutely.
And actually giving a damn, right? And not putting it on for sales or for whatever else, So that's the problem with the sales metaphor, is that there are good salespeople who are authentic.
Sure.
And I spend a lot of time marketing car dealerships, so I understand that not everybody is a good authentic salesperson.
I was just going off of the fact that I've done door-to-door sales.
I am a salesman.
Yeah.
I say that straight out. When I'm on stage, I'm 100% a salesman, because not only am I selling you every one of my jokes, and what is the first rule of sales? Sell yourself, right? You sell yourself before you sell your company, your product, or your price. And if you sell your first 3 things, then your price is easy. Because if I can sell what I do, if I can show you everything and you like my ideas and you like my personality, then how much it costs to work with me is nothing.
Yeah. We always say your customer or your prospect needs to know you, like you, trust you.
Right.
And so and that's kind of it, right? And then the rest is neither here nor there. It's you're their buddy, you're helping them, you're going to solve their problem, and they trust that you'll actually do it.
Right.
So the money's irrelevant. I have to solve my problem.
You're going to spend money. Look, that's the thing, is like, if you're either going to spend the money on getting something right, or you're going to spend the money on fixing it when you've screwed it up. How many people have to go, how much more money do you spend on rewrites and figuring out what went wrong, rather than just
doing it right in the first place
and removing yourself, right? Like, that's another thing. Like, comedy, you have to be so honest, because in my business, you can't be like anybody. As a musician, right? When I was in my band, people would come up to me and go, "Dude, you guys are like if Soundgarden was like this thing," and you'd go, "Whoa, that's the most flattering thing you could say to me."
When you start, though, right? There's always that one comic that you kind of
you look like,
or
emulate is somebody who inspires you, sure. But over time, if somebody went, hey man, you know who you remind me of? That's not good.
Yeah,
That's
you're
called
not
a
doing
hack
the
in my
Carlos
business.
Mencina.
Right. So what ends up happening is the only way, and to be fair, there's 1,000 of us, and we all have to stand on a stage with a mic in our hand and use our voices and use our bodies to tell jokes.
Well,
about
and then
the
you're
same
also
things.
going off of what's current in news and what's current
Right.
stuff. So I'm sure there's
or
a lot of
marriage
times
and
where you
life
kind of
and this. But the fact is
Yeah.
that the only thing that you can do is have your own perspective. The only thing you can do is have your unbelievably honest voice. You have to know who you are, but more importantly in comedy, you've got to know who you aren't. People never know that. They never like come to terms with like who they aren't, right? So a lot of times people just they do or they say things that are out of character or out of their own personal narrative, and that throws off their presentation or whatever it is. So like being able to recognize that and just going, you know, like I had a client that was writing jokes, and one of the jokes I was like, dude, you're this age and you're this type of person. Nobody wants to hear you say that. Nobody. It's gross. I don't want to hear it. I know that you think it's funny and that you want to keep this, but nobody wants to hear
So
you say
let's
that.
talk about like
Me too.
the right the writing process.
Yeah.
I mean, like I get all these I've thought, oh, I'll be good, I could do stand up, it'd be fun, and then I take notes of like things I think they're funny, but I never go and actually make jokes out of them.
Right.
You know, like
You go to completion.
yeah. So I was in an airport and I fell asleep and I woke up with this kid and her mom sitting across from me, and the kid was in my arm.
Oh,
And I woke up and I'm there's like a 6-year-old just curled up in my armpit, and I'm like, well, what the, you know, and I thought that would be a funny thing to talk about. But how do you go about writing a joke about
my
something
instant head is this is how that joke is in the most efficient way. It would be like, you ever fall asleep, wake up not knowing how long you were asleep for, like you're out of it. Like I fell asleep in an airport the other day, and I woke up. There was like a 6-year-old under my arm. I was like, "How long was I out? Who's the mom? How many baseball games have I missed?" Right. So now,
See,
what
like
we've
you
done,
instantly pulled that out, and
Right.
it's funny.
well,
like,
it's because here's the process, right? Here's a little trick, and this is basically I can give this so people out there can understand this, right? So what I do is when you think about it, right, get to the funny. So what you're saying is. The actual situation in itself is humorous, but how do I get to the most efficient version of that funny? Well, the most efficient version of that funny would be to be like, okay, well, in my head, like, is the kid mine? What is this kid? Right? Like, what do I do? And if it was mine, like, that means I've been asleep for 6.5, 7 years, and I slept through the whole process. So now what we've done is we found almost like a spine to the joke, right? Like the trunk, if you will. And then what we do is once you found that, then you can find the core of your funny and you can tag on to it, right? So now I can write 7 jokes around this one thing. I wake up and the kid's right there. I'm thinking, how long have I been out? I'm sorry I missed your soccer games. When's parent-teacher conference? Is he doing all right in school? He doesn't even look like me. How did I get roped into this? Like now I've tagged this joke, but the centerpiece is still funny.
It's still the same.
And so instead of, I think a lot of people try to write for length. They want to kind of write this long piece where it's like, look, man, if you find the centerpiece of what you're trying to say and build around it, you can widen your content rather than lengthen your content. You can make your content more, you know, it's thicker so that every joke or every bait or everything that you're trying to say, every point that you're trying to make has that emotional solid core, but then has those little tags and those little things that can get you really anywhere you want to go. You can use as many as you want, you can play with it, and that's kind of the thing. And then that gives you the ability again to plant those throughout your presentation or whatever, because not everybody's going to be a comic.
Again,
not everybody's going to
on a good point.
I did. Not everybody's going to be a comic and want to laugh every 30 seconds. So sometimes it's just important to have that little emotional check-in throughout your presentation.
Yeah. Well, just hearing you know that kind of analogy and being able to build off of that, it makes so much sense.
Right.
And
like, what's the funny? What's the point of what you're trying to say? Pepsi is delicious. Great. Okay, Pepsi is delicious, and it's better than Coke, right? Okay. Well, how is Pepsi good? Well, it's best when it's ice cold, and it's best when it's. So what is it? So what makes me want to drink a Pepsi? Well, get an ice cold and get that nice little drop running down. We shoot it real close and we pour it over.
Pepsi.
Right, but like that's what I'm trying to do. That whole thing, pouring a Pepsi sexy into a cup, slow motion over a bunch of things. That makes me want to smack my lips and go, yeah, I want that feeling, right?
Yeah.
I want the you know, whatever it is. I chew juicy fruit and I can go, you know, water skiing with twins. I don't know what it is. I'm just saying, like, whatever that they're trying to get across, they're strictly appealing to an emotion, which is what a joke is, right? Like, I'm not trying to say, hey, like I did college is forever. Now we're talking about being married. They're not married. They don't understand, but they laughed because we're not talking about marriage. We're talking about embarrassment or, awkwardness or whatever the core emotional value of the joke is. That's what it's about. So even if you don't have people that identify with your message or your product, they're going to identify with the emotion that's behind your message or your product. And you have to figure that out. And the only way you can do that is by finding the creative part of who you are and looking at your product and your business and your presentation through those eyes.
You ever do improv?
Not like I was never part of an improv troupe, but I mean, I would say most of what that's how we write bit. Yeah, you listen and you play off of it. I mean, Guy and I, like you were talking about the writing process. A lot of that is me or him going, I heard a note today, or I was listening to a song and then another song got in my head, or this song's out there. Like, dude,
Shazam for me, I would hate to show anyone my Shazam history list because I'll hear something, I'll get an idea and I Shazam it and then I try and reference it later.
Right.
Or if I'm doing something live, I'll take screenshots of my DJ decks.
Right.
Because like, oh, that worked. I can do something with
exactly.
that.
And you're making a memory. And that's what's so great about music, right? Like most times when I hear a song and I Shazam it, it's because I go, ooh, what's this? Like it perks me up and I go, what is this? I want to know what song.
And if it does that to me, it's going to do that to them.
Exactly.
And with me, it's Ariana Grande
every time. And we have that emotional anchor to it. And that's what's so great about music is it makes us feel. And that's what we want to be able to put throughout all of our content.
That's awesome.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's a pretty decent place to put a bow on this thing. Not that we couldn't go on forever.
Yeah, let's just make this like a 4-week series. And
we'll just do it over and over again.
Yeah, no, this was great, man. Thank you for letting me talk, man.
Yeah, no, of course. Thanks for coming
seriously,
out. So
thank you for
hell yeah. I'm sorry. I know that for the people who don't know, like I had to reschedule last time because I had client stuff come up. Today I was supposed to be here 3.5 hours earlier. And I had a meeting pop up, I had to shadow a webinar and then sit in on some filming. So I certainly apologize for being so.
I'm just glad it all worked out.
It did. And this was really cool, man. This is a great idea for a podcast.
Yeah, no, we've had a lot of fun. And actually having, this, like Mike sort of alluded to at the beginning, having this little bit of business perspective too. I mean, for us, we selfishly wanted to learn about stand-up and talk a little bit about the comedy business. But I mean, for our fans and for the people who are used to this show, having that business angle on it was really helpful. So
well, awesome. I hope anything I said really made a difference to anybody.
So you've got a show coming up at Wise Guys on January 20th. Is that correct?
We will be okay. So like I said, most of what we do is corporate and private. So right now we're filling up our December. If you're having a holiday gathering, let us know. Most of our weekends in December are already gone. We have weekdays left. And then, I think I want to say it's like January 19th and 20th. We're at Wise Guys in Ogden, which is the next public show. But in December every year, we also do a thing called Comedy Cares, which is a huge charity. Guy, my comedy partner, started the first year. I think we did $300. Last year we made over 25,000 for local needy families.
That's awesome.
And what we do is we take donations of products and things like that from the community. We have a huge network of people that have donated, and we get like really cool things. People one-off woodworking things, music memorabilia. Last year we had the last 2 years we have full stand-up arcade machines, vintage arcade machines. And our auction last year we had so much stuff that I think like everybody that was there got a Kindle because we had so many. Like it was just like those where we were handing out. Like we got to a point where we were like, all right, you know what? You get all this stuff if you win this one. Like we couldn't keep up, and it still takes 4 hours.
Yeah,
it used to be a show and an auction, and now it's like
just
us for 5 minutes, and it's just the auction. And so we do that. We also host those. So if you have a holiday event and you want a comedy act, we can also, one thing that people have us do is we hang out and we host their raffle. And we'll, make fun of the employees. And again, we can keep it 100% clean. We can perform at any rating level we want. So if anybody's interested in that, like I said, marcusandguy.com. We do that year round too. And we can travel anywhere. Like I said, we just got back from Austin. We performed nationally and internationally. If you're local here in the Salt Lake area, we provide our own sound system. So that's not something you have to worry about or rent when you hire us. And if anybody's interested in comedy coaching or wants to talk to me about one-on-one or business training, you can reach me directly at comedianmarcus@gmail.com. So just email me there.
That's awesome. I guess also on Twitter and the socials, and we'll post
Twitter and Facebook. I got a really fun Instagram. Go to my Instagram.
Cool. All All right. Well, with that, everybody on the YouTube stream, thanks so much for joining us. And I guess that's that.
I think that's it.
Yep. So
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in.
Hey,
We'll
thanks,
catch you next time. Thanks.